don't really think of myself as a double bass drum player. I just kind of use it in grooves and fills. And like at the end of that song there, I use a kind of enhancement therapy. Right, so when I have a pattern like 5, I usually think of 5 as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I accent 1 and 3, up, 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 up. You remember how I said I don't like to count? So I can think of a 5. Now inside those notes, there's some which I'm not playing. Number 2, number 4, and number 5. So I play them on the bass drum. Now, when there's a 1 note on the bass drum, as on beat 2, it's very easy, as you know, if you have a double pedal, to turn that into a double note. And likewise, the 2 notes at the end, I turn into 4 notes. And that's kind of happening automatically. I'm not thinking about playing those notes. I'm just thinking of the accents. Same with a group of 7. So it's very simple to mix up groups of 5 and 7 and even 3. And I still know where I am in 4/4 because all I'm thinking of are the accents. So it becomes like a melody. So I know that when I have a space between the melody notes, I have a choice to play a single, I have a choice to play a double, I have a choice to play no notes as well. And when there's a space where there's 2, like at the end of a 5, the end of a 3, the end of a 7, right there, I can play 2 singles, I can play 3 notes, or I can play 4 notes. And it gives me a lot of options, especially when playing fills and kind of solo sections, to have that kind of automated. I think of it, you know, like when you play a snare drum melody, you automatically fill in the ghost notes without thinking about it. With a combination of singles and doubles. That's how I approach double bass drum playing, as if it's the ghost notes between the melody. And of course the trick is to use it pretty sparingly, otherwise you really wear everyone out. Has anyone got any questions about that? How do I get the bass drum to sound so punchy? My bass drum is, I would say, almost half full with a very heavy pillow. And I do that for 2 reasons. 1, because I'm old-fashioned. So there's 3 reasons now. 1, because I'm old-fashioned. 2, it makes the bass drum so easy to play, because I'm playing up against a very solid surface. You know what I mean? I couldn't play something like... if there was nothing inside the bass drum, because the head would be moving so much. To do that kind of thing, you need Derek Roddy. Right? Unfortunately, I'm not Derek Roddy. So I have to rely on other tricks.
Yeah, you're actually good.
And I noticed that when I started playing in bigger venues, and this is kind of typical, a quite boomy room, When I had a bass drum with nothing inside, it sounded fantastic here. I put a microphone in it and it's suddenly out of control, really huge. And in Porcupine Tree, we used two microphones, an SM91, you know, those kind of flat, black Shure microphones on the pillow. And our out front sound engineer gates it. Just a few milliseconds, all you hear is tick. It's just that sound. And you'd be surprised how big that sounds in a big venue. If you play in an arena or something, it sounds like an old 808 with the decay right full. And I say to Ian, it sounds enormous, Ian. He said, that's 5 milliseconds of bass drum. That's all you're hearing. So I like to work closely with the sound engineers that I use or you know, have in bands. And I've always liked a short, punchy, tight bass drum sound. If I go for a big, let's say, John Bonham type sound, I can't do double pedaling. It's just be a total blur. You know, it'd just be a complete rumbling mess. And in a big room, this is a reasonably big room, it's quite a big, that's still quite a big sound. Up here, could you just turn the bass drum out of the PA for a second? It's a pretty dead bass drum sound. Yeah. But I know from experience, thanks. I know from experience that in a big room that's going to work for me and the way that I play. Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
Any other ones?
What pedals are you using?
These are Axis longboard pedals. And I've got a lot of double bass drum pedals. The things I liked about the Axis was, you know, when you're sitting at home practicing, you tend to play a lot less volume. And then when you get with your bandmates and they crank those bloody amps up loud, you start hitting the drums harder. You start hitting the drums harder, and I just couldn't play loud enough with other pedals. There seems to be a sort of international conspiracy amongst guitarists. They always tell you, you've got to have the amp on full, man, or it doesn't sound right. Yeah? And I'm saying, why? It's just deafening. You're blowing us all off the stage. Yeah, but the tone's wrong. I've got to have the... I think there's some sort of secret website where they all agree to kind of do that for you, you know. Thanks. Any other questions?
I'm curious why your snare stand isn't tight.
Why my snare stand isn't tight? That's experience as well. Because when I've blown up a snare drum, you know, the bottom head's gone or the top head's split, I need to get this thing off and get the next one on really quick. I don't want to be diddling around doing this. And also I noticed that when I tightened up the basket, it affected the sound of the snare drum. It kind of choked the sound of the snare drum. A similar thing can happen when you put those clamps on the rims of a drum. I don't know if you've ever done that. Today we're very nicely mounting them just off on the off bars, off the toms. But you know those kind of big clawy things? The same thing, I feel, the same thing's happening with the snare drum basket. It kind of chokes the sound of the snare drum, and if you have to change snare drum quickly, you can have a problem. Thanks.
Thanks.
I'm going to point at this guy. Have I ever considered leading with my left foot on the double bass? No. I always lead with my right foot, and I always play singles. As I said, I'm really not a double bass drum player. I don't consider myself a double bass drum player. But the patterns that I try to play, I just find it's easier for me to lead with my right foot and always play singles. I mean, I can play doubles, but they just don't come out as good. You know what I mean? And I can get more power into the single. Here I am playing this in front of Derek Roddy.